Muy buenos dias, Yub del Tube. We have covered the basics of nutrition, we have covered breakfast, so I think it's time for us to mosey on and carry with the second most important meal of the day, el almuerzo. I've been eating this 5-star Michelin meal for about the past 4 years, and in the experience of my worldly palate, you can't beat it. It's top tier. So you can throw in all the ingredients into one pot in as little as 5 minutes and be eating within the next 20 to 25 minutes. You can also batch cook this delicacy for, 4 or 5 days worth of meals and it'll taste just as good. Best of all is that this works for cutting, for bulking, and for maintenance because although the ingredients stay the same, serving sizes are the only thing that will scale with your goals. So what am I talking about? I am talking about the one pot rice, veggie, and meat lunch. It's delicioso. It's packed in good nutrients for muscle building, losing weight, and maintenance. So let me start off with a very basic example using the bare minimum ingredients for the meal. And do remember, these are going to be using my personal measurements, and these can vary. So what I'll do is, I will take 1/3 cup of rice, which is my usual serving. About 150 grams of chicken breast, which I can just kind of eyeball at this point. And then some broccoli, which, well, I don't weigh or measure at all because it's just fucking broccoli. Anyway, wash the rice and drain the water. I like using jasmine or basmati rice, which is pretty common. It's a staple, and that kind of rice uses a ratio of 1 part rice, 2 parts water. So I'll take however much rice I'm making, use a correct ratio, and then just throw that into the pot. Dice that chicken into small pieces, and then do the same with the broccoli. Though keep in mind that it may take you a decade worth of practice to reach my level of awe-inspiring dexterity with the knife. Ha! Place the pot on your cocina, and once the water boils with the rice in it, add the chicken, add the broccoli, then pat down a little so that they even out with the rice and with the water. Throw in un poquito de olive oil or butter, sprinkle some salt, some pepper, and again, mix around, pat down a bit. Once that is done, turn that shit down to low, cover, and let physics do the rest for you. It will look a little insipid, so sprinkle un poquitito of oregano, basil, and chili flakes. Woo-wee! Gordon Ramsay's got nothing on this. And that's it. That is the basis for the one pot lunch. You could leave it there, but there is a million ways to prepare it so that you can turn your one pot ultra instinct. Before we move on, couple words of advice. I prefer to cook the one pot lunch with chicken breast, but you can also use ground chicken, beef, or turkey. It'll turn out just as good. Chicken breast tends to release its own bird juices into the water as it cooks, so make sure you're not using any more water than you actually need to. If anything, err on the side of caution and use a little less water than you should. Worst case scenario, you can just add a little splash here and there. If you use too much water, your meal will end up looking all soupy and blah, that's not what you want. Now, for beef, do remember that beef has a much higher fat content than both chicken and turkey. So in this scenario, you do not want to use oil or butter, because doing so is just going to oversaturate the ratio of fats and make them float to the top. And I can assure you, esa huevada es asquerosa. Okay, so that's it for meats. Cool, you know what's up with that. But what about veggies? So you can really use whatever veggies you want in the pot, but my personal favorite is broccoli. Why? Because it's good for you, it's cheap, it's filling, and you can get it pretty much anywhere. Though you can sub it out for whatever other veggie you want. I mean, I usually do so with carrots and, diced carrots and Brussels sprouts. Turns out delicious. Okay, cool. So now we can move on to the fancier stuff. So, something I've noticed is that a lot of people don't know or, haven't even stopped to consider that you don't need to cook rice in water necessarily. You can really use whatever other liquid you want. I just, wouldn't recommend coffee or but you do you, boo. What I like to do often is substitute 1/2 of my water with another liquid. Typically 2% regular milk or another milk substitute like almond, oatmeal, or soy milk. Now, I'm aware that this might sound a little weird or gross, but trust me, it's fine and it's a staple in Sandro's bistro. Let me say it one more time, just to make it very clear. Take your ratio of 2 parts water to 1 part rice and change it into 1 part water, 1 part other liquid, 1 part rice. Now, let me show you an example that's just about 60 calories to the first example I showed you, but is gonna have you llorando del sabor. Alright, so here I'm going to be using 1/4 cup of rice, again, about 150 grams of chicken breast, and I'm gonna be subbing out the broccoli for a carrot just because I feel like it. On the side here, I've got my trusty pestle and mortar, in which I've mixed salt, pepper, turmeric, Spanish paprika, chili flakes, and ground ginger. Moving on. Again, once I've got my rice boiling in 1/4 cup of water and 1/4 cup of almond milk, I'm gonna add in the ingredients, mix the spices, squirt in a tiny little choodle doodle of honey, and slap a fleagle deagle of peanut butter in. Barely a teaspoon. And, well, as you can see here, not much has changed, at least if you're just a bystander. It mostly just gained a little bit more color, but I can guarantee you that it is buttery, creamy, and you're gonna fucking love it. Over the years, I've experimented with adding all kinds of weird mierda into my one-pot meal. And yeah, there's been quite a few failures in there, but I've also come up with some pretty dank recipes, and my second favorite one gives it a little bit of an Asian flair. For this one, by the way, you only use water. Anyway, find yourself a local Asian mart and get yourself sesame oil and mirin. Mirin, M-I-R-I-N. Most people haven't really even heard of it, but it's essentially, it's a rice wine that's kinda like sake, except its alcohol content is much lower and its sugar content is much higher. What you do here is pretty simple and almost identical to the previous examples. So, let's start off with the basics. My rice, my chicken, and this time around I'm gonna use Brussels sprouts instead. What we do here is pretty simple and almost identical in nature to what we've already been doing. So, get your usual ingredients in there with the boiling rice, then use sesame oil instead of regular oil or butter and add that splash of mirin to give it that signature amakute oishin nihon no aji. Sprinkle some salt and pepper, though I recommend using garlic salt for this one. Then throw in some chili flakes and squeeze an adequate amount of lime or lemon in there to balance out the sweetness of the mirin. I love turmeric, so I will also add that in for aji to iro desu ne. And oh yeah, don't forget to add an obscene amount of garlic in there. And look at that. Holy shit. The flavor you're getting here is kind of sweet, kind of sour, kind of peanutty, but all around umai. My last preferred method of making the one pot is to cook it kind of like a bootleg chili. And to me, this tastes best with ground beef, but feel free to use ground chicken or ground turkey, even though ground turkey chili is for little bitches. First off, you want to blend your own tomatoes to make a nice thick tomato paste, and I suppose you could buy the canned version, but doing it by yourself makes this dish extra especial. As usual, boil your rice in the water, but don't add any oil or butter. Just toss in the beef, let it all mix on low heat for just about a minute while stirring it in a loving, gentle fashion. By now, the beef will have released its fats into the water, so feel free to add in your choice of chili powder in, and do not go overboard with it, because we're making a dish that tastes like chili. We're not making actual chili. Don't be a little puta. Once you've mixed the chili powder in there, feel free to add the tomato paste and mix again. I love spicy food, so I like to chop a Scotch bonnet pepper to go with it. Though, I know not everyone has a third world gut biome like I do, So if eating a Scotch bonnet pepper is gonna give you an anal prolapse next time you have to go to the bathroom, just do without it. And what is our end product? Ay, Dios mío, papá, qué rico. Or, well, look, it's ground beef in chili powder, so it's only gonna look so good. But trust me, it tastes delicious. Now, there are some things that I omitted out of the video that you could add here that typically go in chili, like onions or chives or whatever else, but I just left them out for simplicity's sake. Other things you can add, for example, would be string cheese or sour cream, but I feel like piling those on is just, it's too much of an increase in calories, and that's not really my goal here, right? But if you happen to be bulking, you could add a little bit of sour cream and a little bit of cheese, and you're gonna be just fine. Y cusi cusa, ya está. I mean, look, your main takeaway from this video shouldn't be, make these 3 different meals and that's it, right? No. The point of this video is to show you that you can take 3 basic ingredients, being again, mainly rice, some form of veggie, and some form of meat, and make some kind of lunch that is going to take you no more than 25 minutes, is going to taste good, and is going to have all the nutrients that you need for, again, a maintenance diet, a cutting diet, or a bulking diet. So feel free to experiment, because there's many other variations of this one pot lunch that I actually cook for myself that are not in the video, because I could carry on and just list one after another and never end. But I feel like these are 3 examples that give you a good idea of how to go from something basic to something slightly more complicated without really adding that many calories, but making your food progressively yummier. Super Mario RPG, Legend of the 7 Stars. Buenas noches, little bitches.